Thomas hummed the welcome note on his refrigerator and continued unpacking boxes in his new kitchen. The morning sunlight streamed through the bay windows, highlighting the oak cabinets he had fallen in love with during the house tour. After 3 years of saving and countless property viewings, this place finally felt right. He unwrapped his grandmother's china plates and arranged them carefully on the open shelving. A knock at the door interrupted his unpacking rhythm. Thomas opened it to find a middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair, holding a plate of cookies. "Name's Marcus. Live next door," he said, extending the plate. "My wife insists no one can properly unpack without sugar." Thomas invited him in, grateful for the friendly gesture. They sat at the kitchen island, sharing cookies and stories about their careers. Thomas in architectural design and Marcus in high school education. "So, has Patricia made her rounds yet?" Marcus asked, his tone shifting slightly. Thomas showed him the gift basket note. "Just this so far. Is she nice?" Marcus chose his words carefully. "Patricia takes her role very seriously. She's been president for 11 years running. Nobody runs against her anymore." Before Thomas could ask why, his phone chimed with an email from work. Marcus took the cue and headed for the door, pausing before leaving. "If you need anything, I'm just over the fence." And Thomas, "Document everything with the association. Everything." The cryptic warning stayed with Thomas through the afternoon as he assembled furniture and arranged his home office. Around 4, he decided to take a break and explore his backyard properly. The previous owners had maintained lovely gardens along the perimeter, and a mature oak tree provided perfect shade for the wooden bench beneath it. As Thomas inspected the flower beds, planning where he might plant vegetables in spring, he noticed a small architectural detail he'd missed during his property tours. A quaint garden pathway that curved toward the fence line shared with the park. The stonework was beautiful, but stopped abruptly about 2 feet from the property edge, as if the previous owner had abandoned the project mid-installation. Thomas knelt to examine the craftsmanship when a voice startled him. That pathway was quite the controversy. He turned to see the platinum blonde woman from the Mercedes standing on the other side of his fence, designer sunglasses perched on her head. "Patricia Wilcox," she said, extending a manicured hand over the fence. "I trust you found my welcome basket." Up close, Thomas noted her immaculate appearance. Tailored blazer, despite the weekend, not a hair out of place, and jewelry that subtly communicated wealth without being ostentatious. "The pathway," Thomas prompted, shaking her hand briefly. "Oh, the Hendersons, previous owners, began installing it without proper approval. We had to issue several citations." She smiled, but her eyes remained calculating. They had quite ambitious plans for this property. Too ambitious, sadly. Thomas felt a strange chill despite the warm afternoon. "Well, I like the path. I might even finish it." Patricia's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Any external modifications require committee approval, of course. The guidelines are quite specific about historical aesthetics and property boundaries." She glanced meaningfully at the fence line. "Speaking of which, our records suggest this fence might be 4 inches beyond your actual property line." Before Thomas could respond, she handed him a business card with her personal number handwritten on the back. "Welcome to Oakwood Estates, Thomas. I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot of each other." As she walked away, Thomas noticed her pause to take several photos of his property with her phone. He looked back at the pathway, suddenly understanding Marcus's warning with perfect clarity. Thomas sipped his coffee and watched Patricia's expression carefully as she showed him a leather-bound photo album of the neighborhood's transformation over the years. Her living room was a meticulous showcase of expensive furniture and strategically placed design magazines, not a cushion out of place. "Oakwood wasn't always this pristine," Patricia explained, turning to a page showing less manicured lawns from the early 2000s. "Property values were stagnant until I implemented proper standards." Thomas nodded politely while noting how frequently she used I instead of the board or we. The coffee tasted expensive but bitter. "Your home has such wonderful bones," Patricia continued, closing the album. "The previous owners never realized its potential. Such a shame they had to leave so suddenly." "I got the impression they were in a hurry to sell," Thomas remarked casually. Patricia's smile didn't waver. "Medical emergency, I believe." "Quite tragic." She leaned forward. "Now about those landscape plans you mentioned." Thomas hadn't mentioned any such plans, but he played along. "Still in the brainstorming phase. I'm considering native plants for sustainability." "How ecological?" Her smile tightened. though the approved plant list does prioritize visual cohesion. We find native plants can appear rather unkempt. After declining a second cup of coffee, Thomas excused himself. On his way out, he noticed a framed map of Oakwood Estates on her wall. Several properties, including his, were marked with subtle red dots. Back home, Thomas found the HOA guidelines waiting in his mailbox, all 187 pages of them. The binder was surprisingly heavy, with neatly labeled tabs and highlighted sections. A post-it note marked page 43, Exterior Modifications. Important for your plans. Thomas flipped through the document, finding increasingly specific restrictions with each page. The section on front doors alone spanned 12 pages, with approved paint colors limited to 7 specific shades, all variations of the same muted blue-gray. He was reading about permitted mailbox dimensions when a shadow fell across his porch. Light reading? Marcus asked, gesturing to the binder. Thomas sighed. Apparently my doorknobs need to be brushed nickel, not polished. Marcus glanced around before speaking. Patricia's having another coffee meeting tomorrow with the Robertsons on Maple Drive. So, it's their third coffee this month. Last year, the Wilsons had 4 coffees before they suddenly sold their waterfront lot to Patricia's sister at 30% below market value. Thomas frowned. That seems convenient. Patricia has quite the collection of convenient purchases, always perfectly timed after a flurry of violation notices. Marcus lowered his voice further. She's been eyeing your corner property for years. Tried to buy it twice before, once from the Hendersons and once from the owners before them. Why my place specifically? Marcus pointed toward the park. Your lot borders both the park and the historical Oak Grove. Perfect location for someone looking to build their dream retirement mansion with unobstructed views. The HOA rules prevent building above 2 stories, unless you own multiple adjacent lots that can be combined. The realization hit Thomas like a cold wave. She's been acquiring connecting properties. Marcus nodded. 3 so far. Yours would complete the puzzle. He glanced at his watch. I should go. My advice, install security cameras tonight. And whatever you do, don't miss any HOA meetings. Absences are how new rules mysteriously appear in the minutes. As Marcus walked away, Thomas noticed Patricia's silver Mercedes driving slowly past his house again. This time, a man in the passenger seat was taking photos with a professional camera with a telescopic lens. Thomas opened the binder to the section on security cameras. The highlighted paragraph clearly stated, no visible security equipment permitted on front-facing exteriors. With a sinking feeling, he realized the game had already begun. Thomas recorded the 7th notice of the month, this one claiming his garage door exceeded acceptable noise levels during operation, into his growing spreadsheet. What had begun as an annoyance had evolved into a meticulous documentation project. Each citation, each interaction, each seemingly arbitrary rule interpretation now had its own entry, complete with dates, times, and photographs. The kitchen table had transformed into command central, covered with property documents, original HOA bylaws from its closing papers, and the newer, much thicker version Patricia had delivered. Thomas had highlighted inconsistencies between the 2 in yellow marker, 47 discrepancies so far. His doorbell rang, and Thomas checked his newly installed interior security camera before opening the door. The cameras themselves were hidden inside birdhouses and decorative fixtures, technically compliant since they weren't visible equipment. Package for you, said the delivery woman, handing him a thick envelope. Thomas signed for it and discovered it contained a professionally conducted property survey, which he hadn't ordered. The accompanying letter explained that the HOA had concerns about potential encroachments and had commissioned this courtesy inspection of his property boundaries. The survey showed his backyard fence allegedly encroaching 3 inches onto part property along the northern edge, precisely where the stone pathway ended. A yellow sticky note with a smiley face was attached to this section. Thomas's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Boundary issues can be so troublesome. Happy to discuss solutions. Patricia. He set the survey aside and continued working through his documentation project. Thomas had discovered something odd in the financial statements he'd requested from the HOA. The annual landscaping budget had doubled over the past 3 years, with the majority of funds going to a company called Premier Estates Maintenance. A quick business registry search revealed the company had been incorporated 4 years ago, with Patricia's son listed as the primary owner. The doorbell rang again. This time, it was a county official. Mr. Harrington, I'm here about a reported code violation regarding unpermitted structural modifications. Thomas frowned. There must be some mistake. I haven't modified anything structural. The official consulted his tablet. We received documentation of a load-bearing wall removal. Apparently, you converted internal spaces without proper permits. That's absolutely false, Thomas said, inviting the man inside. I haven't touched a single wall. The inspection took 30 minutes and confirmed Thomas's home matched the original building plans perfectly. Before leaving, the official showed Thomas the complaint form, submitted anonymously but featuring detailed, false descriptions of internal renovations that would have required expensive permits and inspections. This happens sometimes, the official said apologetically. Neighbor disputes can get creative. After he left, Thomas added the incident to his spreadsheet. The pattern was becoming clear. Death by 1,000 paper cuts, each one designed to drain his time, energy, and finances. That evening, Thomas noticed a real estate broker taking photos of his property. When confronted, the woman explained she was just gathering comps for the neighborhood. Her business card showed she worked exclusively with Patricia's real estate firm. Later, while reviewing his property deed again, Thomas discovered something disturbing in the fine print. A special provision had been added during the previous owner's sale, one that wasn't in his preliminary paperwork, but had somehow appeared in the final version. It granted the HOA expanded rights to remedy and rectify any violations through necessary property interventions after just 3 unresolved citations. Thomas called his real estate attorney immediately. The response was unsettling. This clause shouldn't have been there. It's not standard and potentially unenforceable, but someone slipped it in during closing. The question is who and how. Thomas stared at the foreclosure notice, his hands trembling slightly. The $17,325 figure seemed impossibly high. He spread his payment receipts across the kitchen counter. He had proof of payment for every legitimate fine, totaling just under $900. Yet somehow, late fees and administrative penalties had ballooned the amount beyond recognition. A text notification interrupted his thoughts. My offer stands until 5 p.m. tomorrow. Cash, quit closing. No foreclosure on your record. Consider it a kindness. Patricia. Thomas poured himself a glass of water and tried to steady his breathing. This wasn't just harassment anymore. It was financial predation. He picked up his phone and called his attorney, Jane Chen. They can't just invent numbers, Jane assured him after he explained the situation. But fighting this will take time. Courts move slowly, and the HOA knows it. Time is exactly what Patricia is counting on me not having, Thomas replied. After hanging up, Thomas noticed the moving truck was still parked down the street, its engine occasionally turning on, as if to maintain readiness. The message couldn't be clearer. Patricia expected him to give up immediately. Instead, Thomas drove to the county recorder's office. The clerk, a woman named Elaine with 20 years of service pins on her lanyard, recognized him from his previous visit. Back so soon? She asked. Thomas slid the foreclosure notice across the counter. I need to see every HOA foreclosure action filed in Oakwood Estates for the past decade. Elaine's expression grew serious. That's the 3rd Oakwood foreclosure this year. Usually don't see that many in established neighborhoods. 3 hours later, Thomas had filled a legal pad with notes. 9 foreclosures in 10 years, all in Oakwood. 6 properties had been purchased at significantly below market value by shell companies that, with further research, traced back to Patricia's family members or business associates. In each case, the pattern was identical: escalating fines, sudden foreclosure notices, and quick catch offers as solutions. As Thomas prepared to leave, Elaine handed him a business card. My brother works for the State Attorney General's office. Real Estate Fraud Division. Might be worth a conversation. When Thomas returned home, the moving truck had relocated. It now sat directly across from his driveway. A man in unmarked overalls was measuring his front yard with professional equipment. Can I help you? Thomas called out. The man looked up, startled. Just routine measurements for the neighborhood landscaping project. What project is that? You'll need to ask the HOA president. I'm just following work orders. The man hastily packed his equipment and drove away. Thomas's phone rang. An unknown number. Mr. Harrington, this is Bradford Wilcox, Patricia's attorney. The voice was smooth, practiced. I understand you've received our notice regarding outstanding obligations. My client has authorized me to present an alternative resolution that would prevent public disclosure of these unfortunate circumstances. You mean the manufactured debt based on falsified records? Thomas replied evenly. A pause. These are serious allegations, Mr. Harrington. Perhaps we should discuss this in person. Patricia has kindly offered her home as a neutral meeting ground tonight at 7. Thomas thought quickly. I'd prefer my attorney's office tomorrow at noon. That won't be possible. The foreclosure paperwork will be finalized by 10 a.m. tomorrow. Tonight is your only opportunity for an amicable resolution. After ending the call, Thomas texted Marcus. Is your security camera aimed at Patricia's house? The reply came immediately. Yes, audio too. Why? I need a favor tonight, and witnesses. The retired attorney's living room had been transformed into a war room. Sophia Lambert, a former real estate litigator with silver hair and sharp eyes, directed Thomas and Marcus to join the others around her dining table. Meet your fellow victims, she said, introducing two more neighbors. Elena Cortez, biochemistry professor whose garden gnomes apparently threatened property values, and James Wilson, whose accessible ramp for his father's wheelchair was deemed an unapproved structural modification. Elena nodded grimly. 27 citations in 4 months. Then the offer came, 40% below market. 60% for me, James added. After my father passed, Patricia suggested I might want a fresh start somewhere more accommodating. Thomas spread his documentation on the table. I've been tracking everything. The pattern is clear, but proving it legally might be challenging. Sophia smiled for the first time. That's where this comes in. She pulled out a flash drive. Patricia's nephew worked for my firm as an intern last summer. Bright boy, terrible at cybersecurity, left his laptop open while logged into the HOA's financial management system. The group gathered around Sophia's computer as she displayed spreadsheets, emails, and meeting minutes never shared with residents. The files reveal a separate accounting system tracking acquisition targets with projected timelines for foreclosure actions. Thomas's home appeared under the heading Phase 3 Expansion, High Priority. This is straight-up fraud, Marcus whispered, scrolling through documentation of selective enforcement protocols. Elena pointed to another document. Look at this. They've been altering the bylaws without proper votes, then backdating the changes. As they continued examining the evidence, James uncovered something even more disturbing. Private emails between Patricia and the developer planning to build luxury condominiums on combined lots, including the space where Thomas's house currently stood. The project had already received preliminary approval from contacts at the city planning office. She's not just collecting properties, James said. She's assembling land for a development deal worth millions. Thomas checked his watch. I'm supposed to meet Patricia and her lawyer in 2 hours. They're expecting me to accept her lowball offer or face immediate foreclosure. Sophia closed her laptop decisively. You're not going alone, and you're certainly not accepting anything. She outlined their counterplan. Thomas would appear to cooperate while recording everything. Meanwhile, Elena would contact her brother at the local news station, and James would prepare documentation for the state attorney general using his connections as a former government contractor. Marcus would monitor the meeting through his security system. What about the foreclosure filing tomorrow morning? Thomas asked, worry evident in his voice. Sophia smiled again, this time with the confidence of someone who had spent 40 years outmaneuvering opponents. I still have active bar credentials and a few favors to call in. I've already drafted an emergency injunction citing fraud and racketeering. It's ready to file the moment we have recorded evidence from tonight's meeting. As they finalized details, Thomas received another text from Patricia. Looking forward to resolving this situation tonight. Bring your checkbook for the closing costs or the keys to your house. Either way, this matter concludes today. Thomas showed the group the message. She's getting impatient. Good, Sophie replied. People make mistakes when they're overconfident. And Patricia's made a crucial one. She thinks you're alone. As Thomas prepared to leave, Elena handed him a small device. Backup recording system disguised as a pen. My department uses these for documenting sensitive lab procedures. Thomas tucked it into his pocket alongside his phone. I still don't understand why she targeted me specifically. James pulled up the property maps again. Your lot isn't just valuable for its location. According to these geological surveys, it sits on the only viable access point for water and power lines to service the planned development. Without your property, the entire project collapses. Thomas maintained a neutral expression as Patricia's attorney slid the papers across her glossy dining table. The contract offered $215,000 for a property worth nearly twice that amount. Patricia sat at the head of the table, champagne already poured into crystal flutes. "You're making the sensible choice, Thomas," she said, her voice smooth as polished marble. "Legal battles are so draining. This way, everyone wins." "Could you explain how exactly I win by losing half my investment?" Thomas asked, casually adjusting his tie clip, which contained the second backup recording device Sophia had provided. Patricia's attorney intervened. "My client is offering an immediate cash settlement without credit implications. Given the foreclosure proceedings, this is more than generous." Thomas pretended to review the contract, "And these proceedings are based on fines totaling over $17,000, correct? I'm curious about the calculation." The attorney produced a spreadsheet. "It's all itemized. The base violations, plus compounding administrative fees and late penalties." "Interesting," Thomas replied, photographing the document with his phone. "And was this calculation method applied to all homeowners, or was I given special attention?" Patricia's smile faltered slightly. "The rules apply equally to everyone, Thomas. Like they applied to Elena Cortez, or James Wilson, or the Hendersons before me." A flicker of uncertainty crossed Patricia's face. "I'm not sure what you're implying." Thomas set down his pen. "I'm not implying anything. I'm directly stating that you've orchestrated a fraudulent scheme to acquire properties through manufactured HOA violations, with specific targeting based on your development plans with Westlake Luxury Properties." The attorney stiffened. "That's a serious accusation without merit." "Oh, I have merit," Thomas replied, pulling out his phone and displaying the documents Sophia had obtained, including financial records showing selective enforcement, altered bylaws, and communications about acquisition targets. "Specifically, my property as a high priority for the water access point. It provides for your planned development." Patricia's composure cracked. "Where did you get those?" "Those are private board documents, obtained through entirely legal channels," Thomas assured her. Along with these, he displayed the emails discussing the development deal worth millions. The attorney placed a hand on Patricia's arm as she started to speak. "Perhaps we should reconvene after you file the foreclosure paperwork tomorrow morning." Thomas interrupted. "I don't think so. Here's what's going to happen instead." He placed a different set of documents on the table. "This is a settlement agreement already reviewed by my attorney. You will withdraw all pending actions against me and other Oakwood residents, resign from the HOA board, and provide full financial restitution for fraudulently collected fines." Patricia laughed, though it sounded hollow. "Or what?" Thomas checked his watch. "In approximately 3 minutes, Sophia Lambert will file an emergency injunction with evidence of racketeering. Elena's brother at Channel 7 is preparing a special report on HOA fraud featuring Oakwood Estates. And James has a meeting scheduled tomorrow morning with the State Attorney General's office regarding real estate fraud." As if on cue, Thomas's phone buzzed. "That's Marcus, confirming that this entire conversation has been recorded through your own security system, but what you installed without proper permits, ironically." Patricia went pale. "You can't prove anything without board records." "You mean these board records?" A new voice spoke from the doorway. Patricia's nephew stood there, looking uncomfortable. "I made copies last summer. I thought they were just unusual bookkeeping, until I realized what was happening to people like Mr. Wilson's father." The attorney closed his briefcase. "I believe we should discuss this privately, Patricia." Thomas stood. "You have until 9 a.m. to sign the settlement. After that, the injunction proceeds, along with criminal complaints." He walked to the door, then turned back. "Oh, and I'll be keeping my house, all of it, including those 3 inches of pathway you were so concerned about."